All right. So education. Is America doing it wrong? Let's talk about it.
Living between Sundays.
Okay. So education. I'm so glad we're talking about this.
a long
I
time
gotta
coming.
say, yes, very long time coming. I will start off with saying I have lots of opinions about this.
Yeah.
Very little education about this. So
Mhm.
I am so glad that
What an
I've got.
What an episode.
I'm so glad that I've got you all with me here today. Of course, my name is Theo, and I've got my lovely co-host Maxine,
Hey, everybody.
and we've got a returning guest with us, Beth. She was with us last week, and we're so glad you are back.
Yeah.
And we have with us Beth's daughter-in-law, Katie.
Yes,
You've
I'm
been
so
in the
excited.
family.
Yeah.
Love it.
Yes.
Love
Happy
it.
to be here.
I
Excited to
remember
talk.
the first time I met you, which I don't even know if we like officially met or if I just saw you. It was a couple of years ago. Here we hosted a like a parent day
Mhm.
in how the church can like kind of walk with you with best practices, all that kind of stuff. And you had come in to do a session. I'd heard talks about who you were and all that kind of stuff. And I remember just being like, "Dang, she's sharp. Like she
Thank
knows what
you.
she's talking about."
Glory to
right?
God. Yeah, glory to
And
God for real.
recently, we got you on the team.
Yes,
Woo.
yes. I have been being recruited for quite a few years, and I finally felt ready spiritually and in a good place to
Awesome.
lead. Yeah, I'm excited.
And you're going to be launching with Pastor Sean.
Yep, New
for,
Life Brandywine. Whoop
yeah,
whoop. Yep,
exciting.
September 20th is our first service, 9:30 and 10. Not to steal from La Plata, but we're all together. And yeah, we're super. I'm very excited to see
Nice.
what God's doing.
Nice.
Say those times again.
9 and 10:30.
Okay. there we go.
Yes,
9:30
sorry,
and 10
9
is
and
what she said.
10:30.
That just
a
don't. I
quick
was like,
Number,
wait a
yeah.
second.
Thank you, thank you,
No, we're glad to have you on the team. We're glad to have you on this podcast today.
thank you.
All right.
Appreciate it.
So that being said, I'm just going to fully warn you guys right now. Like I said, lots of opinions here, little education. I'll give you my very brief resume when it comes to education. I studied elementary education for about 2 years. Originally wanted to be a teacher, and very quickly found out that ain't my gifting. That's not what God called me to do. Now, yes, I do teach, but not in the public school system, and we'll get into some of those reasons as we go.
Yeah.
I have with me some of the legends.
Mm.
Mm.
Right. Some people who have studied this stuff, some people who have done this stuff for years. And so my job today, I'm actually going to deem myself the lovely co-host.
Oh, wow.
And,
Wow. Can you do that? Can you say about
I'm
yourself?
going to do it. That
Wow.
I'm lovely.
You just
Wow.
step
I'm
down.
going to do it.
Wow. Okay.
So I guess that makes you the less lovely
I don't like
host.
that. I don't like where we're going
Is
with
that-
this. Don't like that.
All right, Maxie, take it away. Let's talk about education.
You know what's so funny that I heard you say that you were gonna back away, but I didn't know that you were really gonna
Oh, yeah.
just I'm
Oh, yeah.
done.
So like I said, I've got opinions, right?
Okay.
So I'm going to chime in. I'm going to
Mhm.
ask y'all some questions, but
Yeah.
we're going to see where this thing goes.
All right, so what I want to start with then first is just getting a little bit of background so
Yep.
folks know where we're talking about.
Where
so we
we're
know
coming from.
we know that you studied education for 2 years and you were actually
Homeschooled.
homeschooled. It's
Mm.
Yep.
amazing. Okay,
From all the way up to college.
all the way
Awesome.
up to college. It's wild,
That's
amazing.
wild.
And then
Yeah,
Katie?
I was not homeschooled, but I went to school for teaching. I have dual bachelors in elementary ed and special ed, and then went for my master's in educational leadership. So I taught in the public school system for 7 years before stepping away. And then I got into the parent coaching space of education, and that led to me teaching teachers how to specifically in Title I schools or low-income schools, and teaching them basically trauma-informed care with kiddos that are going through some stuff. So, yeah, I have
And
2
you're a
kids.
mom.
I was gonna say I have 2 kids of my own who will be homeschooled.
Mhm.
So yeah, we're going down that route,
Mhm.
and a husband who was homeschooled for part of his education as well. So
1 whole year.
Yeah.
I survived 1 year. No, and I don't mean it that way. Like, I loved it. Like, why we stopped was, like, we'll get into that. But my background is not education. I mean, I actually wanted to go to law school, but life changed for me. So I ended up becoming a paralegal. And then, got married, had children, and left my career for a while, and then got recruited to come back to work in early intervention. So I joined Charles County Public Schools It would be 18 years ago. Longer ago than that, because I think, anyways, let's go with 20. And I started off on the infant and toddler team, so early intervention with the babies. Stayed there in that program for about 10 years, then worked over at central office, and then did that for my tour of duty, and then left there and ended my career in a high school as a college and career advisor. So I did go to public school for a brief time, went to Catholic school, and but graduated from actually from the high school where I worked.
Nice.
Yeah, which was really cool.
It's so crazy because like the two of you and then me, it's like so much similarities. It's wild, and like I just had like we had a
Yes.
proper conversation maybe like last week for the first time
Yes.
because you are very new, but yeah, to hear all of this and we don't even like talk about it
Yep,
anymore because we're
yep.
so into what we're doing now.
Yep,
It's wild.
yep.
So
That's crazy.
refresh our listeners for your background.
Yeah, so I started working in schools when I was like 18, 19 years old because my college had a co-op program, which basically means you work for 6 months full time. You don't go to school, you go into your field or whatever. So I started working with high school students at a school in Boston, and then I also did just a bunch of teaching in that. So I did like peer health exchange, which was like teaching literally health education in Boston public schools because there are no health educators in Boston. Fun fact. So they rely on outside services. And then I worked for an organization, College and Career Readiness, called Bottom Line in Boston, working with high school students, low income, first generation, that kind of thing, helping them get into college. Essentially.
Wow.
And then I also too was going down the law path when I got recruited for Teach for America, which is a teaching program that trains people who don't want to be teachers, to be honest with you, but are looking to do something else. But it's sort of like a service kind of component thing. So you give 2 years and then you get all this other stuff. And so at the time, I don't know where Teach for America is these days, but at the time it was like very like elite. It's almost like you don't say no if you get invited to Teach for America. And so that's very much what happened in my case. They're like, come, blah, blah, blah. They give you all the stars and bells and whistles and we'll help you get into law school with a scholarship, da, da, da. And so you're like, all right, well, I already work with students. What's a couple years, you know? So I started working full time at a school teaching second grade. And that was a charter school. And I quickly realized that we're doing things really wrong. So I got into a lot of trouble when we talked about this.
About that, yeah.
We both got into a lot of trouble. We're a troublemaker because, again, I'm the fight for what's right kind of thing. I'm not going to do something that doesn't make sense. And so I ultimately did not finish my Teach for America residency because I had some really huge issues with the way that the school was running, but also the way Teach for America was allowing for the programs to be. And so I ended up going to work for the high school that I graduated from.
Gosh, that's crazy.
And there I was over admissions and counseling and stuff. But I also did teach Spanish and social justice and entrepreneurship. And I helped out with the volleyball team, coaching that too. So it was like all over the place very much in high school. And as I was getting there, I was like, hey, I need more money. And like in education, you can't really make more money until you go get your master's.
Yeah.
So I was like, all right.
And even then, it's not.
It's not even that much, but it just
gives you a
opens
tiny
you
little
up.
bump.
Did they
Yeah.
at least pay for your master's?
No. So what
Oh,
happened
wow.
is they did not want to work with my schedule. And so I ended up being like, okay, as much as I love being here, and I loved working there. Like it was such a dream. And it was honestly exactly where I needed to be I was going through some stuff and like it was such a safe place to be as I was going through everything. So I think that God used it for that purpose, but then it was time to go. So I ended up going to get my master's educational leadership, politics and advocacy at NYU, and 3 months in, I get saved, and everything crumbled because I had spent so much time. I was working with an organization called Creative Connections. I was with them for 7 years. It's a company I was with up until I got married and moved here, doing college career readiness, but then moved into same space that you did, which was training teachers. And doing curriculum development and parent engagement, like all of those things. Loved it so much. But as I got saved and as I got more and more convicted I realized like I can't actually do the work that needs to be done with these kids, because the problem is not just that they can't read. The problem is not just that they don't have someone to listen to. The problem is that our family systems as a whole are not grounded in Christ. And so everything else looks like what it looks like.
Yeah.
And I can't talk to my kids about that in most spaces. I did work, the high school I was, when it was a Catholic school, but I was not saved yet. Then. So my world became the public school system. And so I did everything I could to be there and to be the light without saying Jesus, without, you know, I prayed over my classroom spaces. I prayed over everything I did, but you can't go in there and be like, hey, let's talk about sin.
That's actually what the main thing that led me away from the education field. I said only after studying for 2 years, right? Because growing up, I couldn't articulate it this way, but I the feeling was I want to leave a legacy, right? Like I remember saying when my professors and people would ask me like, you know, why are you choosing education? Now, of course, they were excited because I was a male, right? And I was a black male. And they're like, we need more of you in the classroom.
We do.
So,
That is true.
So they didn't press too hard, but they did ask like, why do you want to do this? And, you know, one of the things that was in my mind and my heart was I just want, even if a kid cannot articulate Holy Spirit, right? I want them to grow up and be like, man, whenever I was in Mr. Bolden's class, like I just felt safe. I just felt like he was just always fun and joyful and this and that, because I knew that, you know, not everybody was blessed enough to grow up with two parents the way I did. And I got to spend time with my family because I was homeschooled, right? So it's like, okay, how can I bring the values and things that I learned spending so much time with my parents and growing up in the church and stuff? How can I bring that here? I remember getting into observation hours and things like that, and I was talking with teachers, and I think I was sharing this with you a little bit a couple weeks ago, and met some Christian teachers, and it was really cool because like they weren't allowed to say it, and they weren't allowed to ask me, but they're like, you know, ask me all these questions, like, who are you? Like, what do you do? Like, what do you? And one teacher asked me, so slick, I didn't even catch it later. She's like, so, you know, like, what do you do on the weekends? Like, what do you, like, what do you, you know, what's a typical weekend for you?
What do you do on Sundays?
Exactly. And so I mentioned church, and she was like, I knew it. I knew it. Like, I knew you were a Christian.
Jesus.
And what was really cool is at that point, then she could share, right?
Yeah.
She was like, you know, I am too. And so at this point, we're in the break in the day where like kids are at lunch or something. And so she was telling me how she was very purposeful with like, she was like, when I'm at my lunchtime, I'm allowed to like put my cell phone on and I listen to music. And there's always one or two kids that come back a little early. And what are you listening to, Mrs. So-and-so? And so she's talking about all this. And I remember sitting there listening to her and having so much respect. And I'm like, it's so good to see that there are Christian teachers out there and all that.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I'm like, I don't want to have to jump through those hoops. There are people who are called to
I was
that.
going to
That
say
is
that
their
is a
mission
mission for some
Yes.
people. Yes.
Yeah.
But it was like, at the same time that I'm studying elementary education, I'm also starting to get involved with the local church. So I'm doing more with the youth group, and I'm doing more with worship. And I'm like, the freedom to be able to just go to youth group and you need Jesus. Like, that's what you need, right? And whether you agree with me, disagree with me, whatnot, like, I'm going to just say it, right?
When teachers do as well, and we wonder why, you know, teaching will absolutely suck you dry, especially when it takes over, it takes your time, it takes your heart, it takes your energy. And then we wonder, why am I so empty? And it's because we are missing. We're missing that time. We're missing Jesus. We're missing spreading his word. We're missing all of that. And it's just taking.
Yeah, that was a piece that drew me away from it. I was like, I don't want my hands tied in that way, right? So I don't know, the way I look at it, and y'all correct me, the way I look at this, I'm looking at faculty and teachers, and I'm looking at parents and students, right? Now we can go up higher and talk about government and things like that, but that's kind of the realm that I'm seeing this in, that I want to kind of crack open with y'all, because all of that, in my opinion, kind of makes up what we see.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, and I think to some degree, you have to chat about the higher up. In the state of Maryland, while the criteria is the same in terms of a teacher is required, you know, within 10 years of being hired, they don't have to have their master's when they get hired, but they do need to finish. And, you know, so there are laws in place to require what teachers' credentials are. However, in this county, you know, the principal really sets the tone for his building and his staff. And that autonomy really, you know, is, I don't know, I can't speak to anywhere else. This is the only place I've worked. But what I found back to my advocacy, my
Mhm.
fight for justice, all those things, God put me in a place at McDonough in my last, 7 years of education where I took it as a mission to be able to share Christ with kids
Mm.
without saying the name of Christ. I brought, our flyers that the little cards we do for Christmas Eve service, and
Mhm.
put them on my table in my room. I mean, I don't know, prove that I put them there. I
Mm.
mean, maybe a kid brought them in. Like,
Mhm.
sorry, I didn't have cameras in my room, so like
Mhm.
I would do that. Um, I don't think either of you were at staff devotion
I
when
was there. Yeah.
so I did a lot with, you know, uh, because I was the college and career advisor.
Mhm.
Kids loved coming to my office because I wasn't a teacher. I didn't
Mm.
require homework. I was helping them
Mhm.
apply for colleges and get
Mhm.
money. And, what frustrated me was that so often our underserved population, first generation, our
Mhm.
unaccompanied minors, our homeless students,
Mhm.
yes, they're entitled to, free money to access. However, they also don't have somebody to sit with them and help them go through the process.
Right.
And I feel like sometimes the red tape is intentional, that it's hard for that population
Mm.
so that they can't access it.
Mhm.
See, that makes me mad. That
Mm.
makes me
Mhm.
mad. And when I get mad, I'm going to find a way to help you. It's going to be my mission to make sure that we access that. So McDonough is what they call a sales school. So it's
Mhm.
a secondary academy of international language. At one point, I mean, they had like, 82 countries represented, and we had a lot of students from Africa. And this was one of those years where I was really like, okay, Lord, like, why do you have me here? It was one
Mm.
of those days where I felt like I was just beating my head, everything that I fought for a kid, and Abby was one of my seniors, and Abby had come from Africa her junior year, met her junior year, and just happened to be in the counseling suite when she came in, and introduced myself, told her what I did, and just, we just built a rapport over the next, 2 years. She would come, she was quiet, she didn't really know a lot of people. So at lunchtime, she would eat her lunch in my office, and we were just, we would talk. Like she would ask questions, I would answer. She would ask everything from, where can I buy a yearbook to, testing and all the things. And we just built a rapport. And this particular day was a day that I was really questioning what I was doing. And she, Miss Cusa, can I ask you a question? Of course you can, Abby, and answered a question. And my room's full, like 30 kids in there. And, so she was getting ready to leave, and she said, Miss, can I ask you one more question? And I said, yeah, of course. And she said, how do I grow my relationship with the Lord?
Mm.
And it was like, what? Like, I mean, I remember taking like a like a deep breath, like, she really just asked me that?
Mm.
Well, I know, what the policy is. The
Mm.
policy is if that kid opens the door, dude, I'm coming. I'm bulldozing through it.
Mhm.
When I tell you that Holy Spirit just took over, like
Mm.
oh my gosh, Abby, do you go to church? Do you belong to a church? Are you plugged into a church? Do you go to a youth group? Do you have a Bible? Do you have a Bible in your language? Like, I mean, things just started pouring out of me. And, we talked for probably 10 or 15 minutes about, just how she could grow in her relationship with the Lord. All the while, there are kids in my room.
Mhm.
I mean, I'm sure other kids heard. And after, we were finished talking and the bell was getting ready to ring, and she was getting ready to walk out of the door. And it just dawned on me, like, I have signs, little things like, try hard, whatever, like, inspirational things, but nothing that said, Jesus says, love one another. And before she left, I said, Abby, can I ask you a question? And she said, yeah, sure. And I said, how did you know I was a Christian?
Mm.
And she said, oh, Mrs. Cusick, I see, every time I tell it, I cry. Like,
Mhm.
she goes, it just flows from you.
Wow.
And I was like, wow. And it was like at that moment, God said, you are exactly where you need to be right
Mm.
now, right? For the Abbeys of the world. And the beautiful thing about being where I was is that I wasn't a lone Christian at that school. Like,
Mm.
you know, there were teachers that did prayer walks in the morning. I still get text messages from Miss Hicks every single day at 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm still on her text thread of, you know, like scriptures for the day. Like,
Yeah.
you know, the beautiful thing is there are lots of believing teachers embedded in the school system. And thank you, Jesus, for them. Like legit. But you're right. It is a missionary field because you can't just preach the gospel, but
Yeah.
just like when I was tasked with, could you bring an inspirational speaker to the college and career day? I was like, yeah, of course I can. And I invited Theo. And, you know, I'll never forget that first year that you came and you did your whole talk, you know, like, I mean, it was all from scripture.
Mm.
You just never quoted it.
Mhm.
Like everything you did was like, and to me, like, I know that's like, you know, kind of covert, like on our part, but you know what, those kids, every single time you spoke to somebody stayed after to talk with
Yeah.
you. And my principal, when he walked in, he was like, you didn't tell me you had Pastor Theo coming. And I was like, oh yeah. I think when I wrote down my request, you know, who's your guest speaker, you know, and I listed you as an inspirational speaker. Like, I mean, you did inspire.
Well, I think we often forget the history of American education and where it came from. The first common schools where Puritans wanted everybody to be able to read scripture.
Mm.
That was why schools were created.
Oh.
And we had the first university, Harvard, was created on firm Christian values. Like the whole goal was Christian values. Now I don't know if he's still president, but the president is an atheist chaplain, which how those two words go together,
Right.
I don't know. But we've just flipped it.
Oh.
It's a 180 from where it started.
Well, this is the
where
thing.
we
Like
are
we have
now.
this. Again, like we tend to separate certain things into like secular life and then spiritual life, but it's all spiritual.
all
Everything is
Everything.
spiritual.
Yep.
And like the way that this like the enemy has us in a chokehold, right? Because you think about it, like the worst thing that you can do in school is talk about Jesus. Like that's the worst thing.
Right.
Like everything else, allowable.
Yeah.
Oh,
That's
sure.
fine. You can do this. You can
Yep.
do that. You can blah blah blah. You can confuse the kids about their gender. You can blah blah. But oh Jesus, no, you're indoctrinating them.
Right.
That's the only thing
Yeah.
that is like, oh, you're indoctrinating them for. Which
When the real spiritual battle is they want our children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They want our children. I
So-
was such an advocate for the public schools, as you were too. I was such an advocate. If I would go back 10 years and hear myself say I'm homeschooling my children, I would be like, what? What? I would think I was crazy. It's,
Yeah.
but when you're in it, yeah.
Well, I think too I think we've all probably experienced this, but over the years, how much the schools have changed,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Even from, I'd say, so I haven't been in schools now. I've been married for 7 years, so 8. So it's been about 8 years since I've been in any type of public school like setting, classroom space or whatever. But as I was getting ready to leave, even if I wasn't getting married, I knew it was time to leave. Right. It was getting so tight in terms of how I could speak or what I could say, or like, you have to sign your emails with your pronouns. Why? I didn't have to do it 6 months ago. Like,
yeah.
you're identifying something that I'm not identifying. So you put it in your email. Like, it was just stupid, like little battles and things like that I was like, this is taking away from what we're actually trying to do. So it was naturally time anyway. But also, I think there was this place. It wasn't that like, boom, I got saved and I was like, oh, I don't need to, like, I need to go work for church, because that was never like in my mind. It was just like this, God was literally highlighting that in my mind, I thought that the answer to everything was more education. That's just where I was, like, more education. There's poverty because education. People are behaving badly because lack of education. People lack of education. Like, that was literally my response for everything. And then I get saved and I realized, like, no, these are all just masks for all of the other things. And so it does become somewhat difficult to move. And I also do know great Christian teachers. I think you probably have more of that down here in Maryland as opposed to Boston and, New York City, which is the places that I taught. But I want to get into this conversation a little bit because we started kind of pulling at it a bit. But the whole public school versus private school versus homeschool. So I know you just mentioned you're getting ready to homeschool your kids.
Yeah.
I'm also going to be homeschooling my kids. And I also decided that before I had children, despite being such an advocate of public schools at the time. I think my time working in public schools changed my opinion on that, but I want to
Yeah.
get into some of the reasons as to why. And then Theo, you guys are homeschooling as well, right?
Mhm.
Partially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be homeschooling at least up until she used to say, okay, when I first met her, it was, no, I don't want to homeschool.
Yeah.
Then it was, maybe we'll homeschool for like, kindergarten, first, second grade. But, when they get to middle school, I really kind of want them to like
Mhm.
get out, play sports, do the thing.
Mhm.
Now it's like, maybe we'll go up to high school. We're
Yeah,
creeping
you
on
keep
up.
switching
Yeah.
down the line. But yeah, I want to talk because we have, I think everybody here has worked in a public school for sure.
Mhm.
We have that. And then, did you also work in a Catholic school at
I
one
have
point?
never been in a
No,
Catholic
but you
school.
have.
No.
I went to Catholic
You went
school.
to. Okay, so
did.
I worked private
Yep, went to
education as
Catholic
well.
school. Then my boys went to Grace Lutheran.
Mm-hmm.
That's where they attended when they were younger. And yeah,
Yeah.
and I worked there.
Yeah.
I worked there too.
So I guess let's talk a little bit about that conversation, that debate, homeschool versus public / private.
Yeah.
Where do we want to go there? Go ahead.
Go
Bring us
ahead.
in.
No. Well, I have to go back a little bit, but I was not going to leave the public school system. God dragged me out. My son got really, really sick and ended up in the ICU at Children's. And the school system was calling me, telling me I was out of leave. And I needed to submit a leave of absence, I need to do this, I need to do that. And I very quickly said, I quit. Because if you can't care about my sick baby, I'm out. So I left mid-year, which that's why I'm getting emotional, because that was the hardest thing ever. But
Mhm.
looking back, God already knew my walk. So coming from there, Beth happened to be in the right place at the right time and heard through the grapevine they were looking for a tutor for our tutorial we started at New Life Calvert. And so they hired me like 7 months pregnant, hired me anyway. I got to baby wear my baby. I taught pre-K for a year, and then I taught 3rd through 5th in their homeschool tutorial, which for those of you not in the education realm, a tutorial is basically where you partner with typically like a church, a group, and tutors come in. And in this setting, it was 2 days a week. You would drop your kids off from 2:30 or 8:30 to 2:30, and then we teach those 2 days, and then we send home what you need to do at home. And so I did that for 2 years and just absolutely loved it. And now they're starting that here at La Plata, and my son will be attending there. But I just love not only that I can talk about Jesus with kids and use those morals and talk about scripture with them when they're especially 3rd through 5th grade. That was a super fun group to work through that with. But I also just get to teach things the way I want to teach them.
Yeah.
I get to teach the truth. I get to go on if my son's super interested in kangaroos, I don't know, we can do a whole study on kangaroos and go see a kangaroo and do whatever we want to do. We're a public school. We talked about the rigidity. It's like you need this lesson on this day and you move on. And it's like, okay, well, this group doesn't understand. It doesn't matter. Keep moving. And that's why I would get myself into trouble till test scores came out and wonder why mine were so good. I don't know. But you don't get to teach to the kid. You teach to the test, you teach to the curriculum, and that's it. So
And I'll say that is, looking back at it, that was the biggest point. Now, I think my parents chose homeschooling originally because my dad was very much, he was diehard. If I can't say Bible and Jesus and, teachers, and it wasn't even as crazy as it is now, we're talking 25 years ago. But he was like, him and mom were like, this is the route we want to take. But through that process, I am convinced that if I was in public school system, I would have been a very different person because of what you were just saying. My mom tells stories about how frustrating it was to teach me because I was just not a typical learner, right? And she taught my oldest sister, and it was like, point A, point B, and she was like, then I go to teach Theo, and he's like playing with toys, and she's like, then I take away his toys, and then he doesn't need toys because his hands are now an airplane, and he's just like, she was like, but then when it was like time to take a test, I realized like he was remembering some of
because
this.
little boys are so different, and we don't let them be little boys.
And so now she's learning, or back then she learned how to teach in a way that I would understand, right? everything became a lesson. When we go to the grocery store
Yep.
and, you know, the total is going to be X amount, and
Yep.
mom would say, all right, I'm giving them a $20 bill. How much am I getting back?
Yep.
Right.
When you're baking, like you don't.
Exactly.
People always ask, like they want workbooks for their toddlers. I'm like, your toddler doesn't need workbooks. They just need you to walk alongside them and teach them as you go. Do colors while you're doing laundry. Do color, numbers. Count things while you're walking up steps. Like all these things. That's education.
Yeah.
Right. I mean,
We've
and
taken
play.
every
Like,
we've
play
taken
with them.
every piece of play out. It used to be half day kindergarten. At
Right.
least we had that in PA. Not anymore.
Yep.
It used to be play-based kindergarten, which research shows is what we should be doing. Took that away. Now you expect a 5-year-old to learn to read by the end of the year. They're 5.
Right.
They're 5. It's these unrealistic expectations. And then COVID threw another wrench into it. And
Yeah.
they still expect these kids to be at this standard. And when you look at the reading and math scores, it's embarrassing that that's what we're pouring out of our schools.
Yeah.
We should be embarrassed.
Yeah, I think that's one of the reasons too. It's like, I mean, there's many reasons why I'm choosing this or I have chosen, but like that's one of them. It's like you're trying to tell me that this is what my kid needs to do, but you've not had any real success in it.
Right.
And I know that there are some schools, some public schools that do well, but that's
That's not the norm anymore.
that's not the
No,
norm. It's
no.
very rare to have a school that does well across the board. And then I think just like in terms of priorities, again, like I believe that most schools have a hard time just teaching the basics of math and English. Phonics, like the base. You can't do that, and then yet you're spending all this time in culture wars
Yep.
Right.
and trying to teach my child culture
And
stuff.
handle
I'm like,
behaviors. And not to mention, at least in our county we live in, there's more conditional teachers, meaning uncertificated, than there
Yeah.
are certificated.
Yeah.
Right.
Even in special education.
Yeah.
Right, which
Where
never
you would
used to be
need
the case.
more.
They used to not even legally be allowed to have them in there. I
well,
mean, that was
so this goes to another point though, but because part of this is also happening because no one wants to teach anymore.
no,
Nope.
they don't.
And they don't want to teach anymore because yes, I'm going to go here. It's the parenting is not what it used to be.
Yep.
Okay. And then also like the support is not there. And so
Yep.
it's very difficult, I think, to be a teacher right now than it was like 30
Oh.
something years
Well,
ago.
COVID kind of rapid fired so much of
Mhm.
that. But I did just recently hear from a friend of mine in early intervention that right now Anne Arundel County's teacher union is fighting for teachers because they want kindergarten teachers to potty train or to change diapers in kindergarten.
Wow.
And I said, in special ed? And they said, no, regular education.
Yeah.
Because parents don't want to take the time to potty train their own children. So they're going to put that on the teachers. You will have kindergarten teachers dropping like flies. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't go to school to change a 5-year-old's diaper.
Yeah,
I mean,
Let alone open legal doors to somebody say,
Yeah.
I did this, I
Right.
did that,
Right.
when
correct.
it's not the truth.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So I think there is a part of this too of like, we have to as parents, I think, be more involved. And this is not to shame anybody because it's hard being a parent.
Oh.
Like I'm exhausted all the time. I've got a 4-year-old and almost 2-year-old, and it is, I say this all the time, it is the hardest thing I have ever done, and I've done a lot of really, really hard things. This is the hardest thing by like
they are the toughest boss
miles.
you will ever have.
And it's
Yeah.
constant. So I know that it's difficult, but part of the reason why it feels so difficult for me personally is because I am trying to put in the work
Mhm.
Yeah.
to show up, to
Yeah.
do the things, to make sure that we can repair what we need to repair, to expose them to what they need to be exposed to keep from them what they don't need to at the time being. And so to me, like we have to be proactive. I think we've gotten to a place in education where like what you were saying is we've given them all of the reins, like the school, the system, the teachers, all of the reins for how we want to form our child. Then we get our child home on the weekends or in the evenings and we don't recognize them. And then
Yeah.
we're mad
Yeah.
and we're upset. And it's like, okay, well, there's too much given, too much leeway given. Most of the parents don't even know who their teachers are. You have no idea what the teacher's saying. Like I worked in some of the worst schools in the Bronx, in Brooklyn, in Queens, and I saw some horrific teachers. I'm going to be honest with you.
Yep.
So it's not all parents. It's also some teachers don't need to be anywhere near kids. I saw them cursing at kids. I saw them throwing stuff. I saw them saying really vile, vulgar things. And that's when they knew they were being observed. Like they saw me in the
So
room.
what happens, behind
Right.
closed doors?
So
when-
you have kids who are coming maybe from volatile homes already and then coming into a school that's also volatile. And what are you going to get? You're
Yeah.
going to get chaos,
Yeah.
right? And so like we have to think about all of these pieces. It's not always possible for somebody to homeschool their kid, and I
No,
get that.
right.
So I'm not saying that this is the route for everyone, but if you are not homeschooling, where in your space do you have time to actually talk to your kid about what's going on?
And be
You
involved
should be at
with
all
the
the parent-teacher
teacher.
meetings,
Yes.
all this stuff.
Yes.
And I know you have a job and I know all the things at the end of the day, but I promise you that it's going to be so painful when you find out that your kid has been arrested
Yeah.
or your
Yeah.
kid is whatever, like the
Well,
outcome.
and even just, you're exactly right. I mean, I take that as the highest standard, like the moral standard. But even just from the academics, I can tell you this, that when I was in HR, and I have such a hard time keeping track of years
It
anymore.
was like
So
2017.
thank you. So I'm glad she knows.
It's because when I
So-
moved here, she worked in HR.
So at that time, between our people, or our two people that handled certification, right, a few years prior to that, there were in this county alone, like I'm going to go with, I'll be generous and say about 10, what we call conditionally certified teachers. And that's somebody with a bachelor's degree who the county, pays for them to go back to school and get their certification while they're still teaching. And they're counting that classroom time as their student teaching.
Okay.
Now, we've
Which-
gotten some incredible. I have friends that
Yep.
I was a mentor for them.
Amazing.
Two of them pop in my head right away. They are incredible educators, and they're still in the school system, and I'm so grateful that
Yes.
that they are. However, the
That's not
opposite
the norm.
is also
That's
true.
not the norm. So they're back then, and I don't know, I've been gone for a while now, but the norm was 2 years. So after 2 years, they're getting, full salary, full benefits, tuition
It's
reimbursement.
the same. They get paid the same as conditional from the start.
As
Or
a-
conditional and certificated are on the same pay scale now.
Now they've bumped them up.
Yes.
So Katie, who came from a program where she was certified with reciprocity from PA to be able to teach here in Maryland, would have been on, this step. Conditional teachers used to be below that. Now they've bumped them to the
They
same
make the
level.
same money.
So somebody that's got $100,000 worth of student loan debt, and somebody who has a bachelor's degree in underwater basket weaving and is being trained how to teach kids, they're making the same amount of money.
Yeah.
Talk about the resentment that it breeds.
Yeah.
So teachers who really did go into it because they love kids and they wanted to make a difference are looking around going, and then COVID hit, and then everybody goes on virtual learning, and then those teachers go, you know what? I've got a master's degree in English or mathematics. I can get an online job making 3 times what I'm making and don't have to listen to a
Yeah.
parent complain that whatever I did, and a mass exodus. It has been. And so now, even just a year ago, so I'm sure it's the same, we have proximity teachers. And that means your child sitting in a math class with a TV screen, and a teacher from Texas is teaching them mathematics
Wow.
while there's a babysitter in the room that takes, gives them permission to go to the bathroom. Like, what level of education is really happening?
Yeah.
Like, how are you having really eyes on what the progress of those students are? Just from, I'm talking strictly academia right now. Like,
Right.
that's
Yeah.
terrifying. I mean,
Yeah, this is part of the thing. So like as I was beginning to get into my master's program, and so as getting my master's, looking to move into my PhD, because I had this grand idea that we were doing school wrong even then, and the idea was really essentially we need to disrupt the education school system,
Got
blow
it.
it up completely, and like start from scratch, right? And I remember having this conversation with someone, and they were so upset. I mean, like, you would have thought that I like murdered their baby when I said this, because they're like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "Well, honestly, I hate to. I mean, listen, if something has been broken for a very, very long time, and there's been no effort to really fix it, or none of the efforts that have put forth have fixed it, we're not doing something right."
Yeah.
So Department of Ed has been doing the same thing for a very long time.
Same with colleges. The way we teach
And
teachers
it's
is
not working. The way we
Mhm.
teach teachers is not working. The
Mhm.
way, and like, we haven't understood, no one's figured out yet that we have to adapt and change and grow, and that we need more tactile learning, that we need the different understandings of spaces. We still need kids to learn how to read. You still
Yeah.
need to learn how to read.
Yes.
You still need to know how to write a paper. It's good for your thinking to know how
Yes.
to write,
Yeah.
right?
We brought
Um,
computers into the classrooms, and it's a crutch.
Yes.
It's and I I also want to speak on the privilege of homeschooling.
Mhm.
Like, there are parents that I don't want anybody to listen to this and be like, well, it's easy for you to say
Mhm.
because
You
you have that ability. I am very aware of that
Mhm.
blessing. But I get angry because I'm doing what I can, or
Mhm.
I started a business so that I could get into the schools, and it's just like it's so frustrating because you see it and you're just like you said, what are we doing?
Mhm.
What are we doing?
Yeah.
It took until last year in Charles County for them to do the science of reading, where it's actual phonics
Yeah.
instruction.
Yeah.
Where before we're teaching them look at the picture and guess the word.
Hmm.
You're not teaching them to read, you're teaching them to guess the word. So those
Mhm.
strategies that they were using to teach kids is such a disservice.
Yeah.
I look back at my first year teaching, I'm like, those poor children, they got a loving, supportive classroom, but I don't think I was teaching them how to read correctly.
Yeah.
So it's like, but that's because nobody taught me how to teach.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah. Yeah, we have to find a way to, and so part of the conversation I was having, because they were talking, there was a policy, I guess, at the time to shut down the Department of Ed.
Mhm.
Do you remember this? Like
Yes.
politically, it was like crazy, and I was actually, I was like, that's not a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
What do you
Oh yeah, I
mean?
had a
Kids
lot
are
of
not going to have schools,
conversations.
and what are we going to do with the school? Da, da, da. I'm like, well, what are you talking about? The schools are not doing what they need to be doing.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
So you're taking taxpayers' money to run a program not well. Like
Yeah.
that's what's happening right now.
Right.
And so
You
I'm
should
like,
be angry too. You should be angry that your child has special needs and they're being taught by a teacher that's not trained in special education.
Yeah, but
That should
they-
make you angry.
They don't
Yeah.
know though. That's the thing. They
Right.
don't know the lack of awareness. I tell you, like I remember teaching, and again, this is about at least 8 years ago now, right? So I don't know what's changed. I feel like it's worse. I fear that it's
yeah.
worse. But we have parent teacher night, and we have
Yeah.
6-7 parents show up, and you've
I've s-
known about these
yep.
dates for years,
Yeah.
right? So like I understand some people can't take off for work, but that's a minimum. Most people,
We're protesting. We're showing
have-
up for the data. I saw the turnout for the data centers, which good, show up for that too. But
Mhm.
you show up for that.
Yeah.
Where's the value in your children?
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, most people are just not aware.
Well, yeah, and I think too that it has been such that belongs to the institution.
Mhm.
That's their job. That's
Mhm.
their job to teach my kid.
Yeah.
That's what you get a salary for. I mean, that's
Mhm.
the I'm sorry, but the entitlement that you hear from parents that
Yeah.
that's what you have a job for is to teach my child. Like, what do you want me to do at home?
Mhm.
I mean, are we serious? Like it's, I mean,
And there's no discipline. As a teacher, you have nothing. You have
Yeah.
nothing that you can do.
Yeah.
oh no. I mean, even at the high school level, there are very few teachers that it's their policy that when you walk in their room, you either put your phone into, a box or you put it away. But too many teachers have been threatened that I paid $1,700. Can you afford to replace my child's phone if you break the? Teachers are like, it's not worth the battle anymore.
Yeah.
Like, and while they attempt to enforce policies, you wouldn't believe the parents that lose their minds when there's a testing violation because that's above the school itself.
Mhm.
So when parents get called, sorry, the test you paid for the PSAT, the test was invalid because they took out their phone, and the parents are like, well, I want my money. No, sorry. They sign a paper here that said they clearly understand, but
Yeah.
on a day-to-day basis, not much.
I think like, and here I'm gonna get in trouble again, but it's going back to my days. I'm kidding. There's very few things in life that if you don't pay for them, you value.
Yep.
And I think that's where we are as a society. We don't pay for free public school education, so we don't value it anymore. When you had to work to get education in our country, when there were only a few schools and you had to travel to get to a school, or whether you had to have money to go to school in countries where you have to have money to go to school, the way that education is valued is crazy.
And if you don't take it seriously, your parents care.
Yeah,
because
but here, because it's just so freely available, it is what it is. I do think that we have a value problem looking at it, and like, to me, and I know people are gonna come ready. Well, the low income kids and the da-da-das and the this and that, and I hear all of it, and I still think the solution is we still have to have education should cost something. It's very hard when it doesn't, because the parent has no buy-in, the children have no buy-in. It just becomes this like babysitting space. Oh, my kid's not doing the work. Oh well, it's not a big deal. But I bet you if you were paying for it, you'd care if your kid is doing the work or not.
See, whether or not it costs isn't. Again, let me just say, I'm the caveman in the room when it comes to actual the study of education, right? But whether or not it costs is not my main thing. I'm just gonna go back to what all of you are saying is the lack of care on parents' side, right? Because we grew up, like I said, being homeschooled all the way until college. We still had to pay taxes, right? So we were paying for a service that we weren't using, but my parents cared about our education, right? And man, you could look and you could say, well, public schools are this, and I'm gonna send my kid to a private school or Christian school. When I was 14, I took a class at a Christian school so that I could be considered a student, so that I could play sports for them. So that's how I started playing organized basketball, and loved it. But I quickly realized these kids are just as bad, as not worse, right? In fact, I'll never forget, there were specifically 2 students who were there because they got kicked out of public school,
Right.
and so their parents, had to pivot, right? And so there's this idea that yes, I can agree with everything y'all are saying as far as the faculty and government and how we as a nation view, but like for me, I look strictly at the parents,
Yeah.
right? Because if the parents actually cared, whether it's through charging money or not, then it wouldn't really matter. In fact, the way we've been talking about, the way I specifically have been talking about our tutorial program that we're getting ready to launch, I've been telling
We have
people.
spots available.
Yes, we do. I've been telling people I'm not going to shoot shots at the public school system or at the
No.
teachers, because as we said in the beginning of this episode, there are lots of Christian teachers who value your children,
Yes.
value education, all that. A lot of them, their hands are tied on what they can actually do because of, faculty and all that stuff.
In politics.
But the idea is, I would say, whether you have the ability to homeschool your kid, tutorial, or if public school is it, you need to take a hold of your child's education.
And
That's
I don't
on
think,
you.
and I've seen kids. I had a little girl who they found in a really horrible situation, and dad didn't even know he had a kid, and he was displaced, and kind of got a knock on the door of, this is your child. And she came to our school and had to pretty much learn how to do everything. And that little girl, by the time she got to me, she wanted to learn and she loved it. So it's like, it's this delicate balance, because morals, if you're still teaching your child morals, whether you have money or not, they're going to come to school and care.
Right.
And it's like, it's the moral system being removed from education that's shattering it, because, there are kids who have no money that wouldn't be able to do it, who love to learn and want to be there and want that community, because their parents are doing the best that they can. They have single working moms who are busting their butt to make sure that their kids are taken care of, and those kids care because they do see the work their mom's putting in. It's all just about you as a parent. How are you presenting this? Is it important to you?
Yeah.
Because if not, it's not important to your kid. Does your kid respect you? If not, they're not respecting teachers. Are you respecting teachers? Because if you're not, your child certainly is not.
Right.
Like,
I was going to say, it's the temperament of the home.
Yes,
really. To your
it's-
point, it really is.
I don't know. I hear it, but I don't know, because I just feel like, think about it. Like, it helps to have really solid parents who care and like all that 100%. It is better to have the 2 parents who show up and who care and whatever. But it doesn't always mean that it's going to produce a student who also cares and shows up and blah, blah, and vice versa, right? So we have, in your case, like that you were talking about, you can have a neglectful parent, you can have, and the kid loves school and they show up and they do the right thing or whatever. So I think it's a mix of, and this is why we haven't solved this problem yet, right? Because it's a solution that requires a lot on a bunch of different ends. But, and then here's the thing is, like, we often go for solutions, and I think the public school system does this, all school systems do this. They base a solution off of a small percentage of people. And then they're like, okay, let's blanket this for everyone. And this is the problem that I'm looking at. So I'm looking at, there are parents for 100% that they just don't value it, right? And they don't value it because it does not cost them anything to show up, or whether they do show up or they don't, it doesn't matter, because all they're looking for is babysitting anyway.
When it used to be, so one of my things for discipline that helped, if I had a kid that dumped out bins in my room, that's fine. I do it the same way with my parenting. That's fine. You're going to stay after school and clean it up with me. What? Yeah, we're going to call mom. She's going to have to come up here. Well, then I'm putting it on mom because now
Mhm.
she's got to go out of her way
Mhm.
to come up here for an extra hour of school and
Mhm.
sit. Again, got myself into trouble, but that was my way of not purposely inconveniencing the parents, but saying, hey, if I'm dealing with this, you are too.
Right.
So
Mhm.
get here.
Mhm.
So you might not be able to pay because he did this or have to pay for him to come here, but you're going to, and wouldn't that kid be, he was my best friend by the end of
Yeah.
the year. And he's still, I
But
think
see, but
about
this is
him
the
all
thing
the
too.
time.
That's still just a portion here, right?
Yes.
Because you have some people who, again, we have the value issue, right? They
Yes.
don't care, they don't value. Then you have the portion of people who literally cannot be there because they're the single parents trying to hold down the thing, and they have the jobs and the stuff, and they literally can't make anything at school. That's a whole different set
Yes.
of issues and of people. And then we have the parents who have the time, they have the money, and then their kid is just still buck
Yeah.
wild. And like, what do you do then?
So-
The parent is showing up. The parent is trying to like do all of the right things.
Let me just clarify. In all the scenarios that you just said, are you saying that if the parent actually cared, right? So obviously the first group is excluded because we talked about they don't value it, whatever.
Mhm.
But the low income,
Mhm.
the family who, single mom who
Mhm.
can't make any of the parent teacher conferences, things
Mhm.
like that. Are you saying any one of those situations, genuinely caring about the child's education and the morals, as Katie was saying earlier, would not translate to a better student? Because you had said
No,
earlier
I'm saying
that,
I don't know that it always does.
Okay.
Right? Like in a perfect world, yeah, you have parents who care, you have so it produces a great kid. But I went to school. I went to school with kids that their parents were all always there and trying to be super involved, and they're still doing crazy things. They're
So
still
would
like,
them
Right.
paying fix that?
no, I didn't say that.
Oh.
I'm,
I thought,
I'm saying
okay.
that we need different solutions for different
Yes.
types
Oh,
of
yes,
parents is what I'm
absolutely.
saying.
So,
So like there's a grouping of parents here that it would benefit them to have to pay because they
don't
are
care,
not
yes.
responding to
Sure.
anything. There's a grouping here that would respond with they just need parenting classes.
Yeah, they need
right?
parent coaching.
There's a grouping
Mm.
here that needs help because their kid literally needs all of that extra support. So we need
Yeah.
something there. And this is what I'm saying. This is why
Yeah,
it's
it's
so
so hard.
difficult to
Yeah, it's
come
so
to
difficult.
any type of progress with where we're at. My stance, what I was explaining to you before when I was like in whatever is like we need to blow up the whole thing so that
Yeah.
something new can start all together, which I meant like, listen, and I know it's crazy, but this is where I was like, every single public school has to shut down. Every single one. And that's chaos because like where are kids going? Where are the
Yep.
parents going to do? But you know what? But what happened in my mind, because we've seen this in other areas, not just in education, but in other areas, is that when something collapses completely, you have no choice but to come up with something new that works. This happened in Argentina. There was a huge thing where like the schools, all of them collapsed. Their education system completely collapsed. It took some time, came back, and it came back better than ever. It has one of the best education systems. They figured something out by it actually shutting down and putting this pressure. Can you imagine the amount of pressure that it would be on parents if all schools closed down?
Well, COVID, it was
Yeah.
a sample of it, and
Yeah,
they just didn't show up.
Yeah,
right.
They just
But look, it was a temporary space.
Yeah.
But can you imagine if this was reality? If this
Mhm.
was just reality? There are no schools available.
I guess
but
it
this type
depends
of
on who
thing.
rebuilds it. Because, depending on what entity takes over of the rebuilding, because so many
Mhm.
of the policies that are in place teachers will tell you that's not what they learned in college that they were
Mhm.
going to be doing.
Mhm.
Like they, God bless them. These sweet little teachers come in with this beautiful vision that they're going to change the world. And we
All my
changed
decorations
them.
got torn down on day one.
Yep. Well,
I had a
and-
cutesy little classroom, all torn
and
down.
I guess what I have seen that has worked, and I'm going to go back to early intervention because it's so vital. Parent coaching
Mhm.
is missing in this society.
Mhm.
And I'm just going to say this because I've noticed it here in this church. So now I'm going to get real ugly. Parents still don't really want to be a part of what their children do. So, yes, it's exhausting. Yes, they're the toughest bosses you have. Yes, you're trying to do all things all the time by, scrutinizing what they eat. It was not that hard when I was raising kids.
Mhm.
And I say that with all the love because there was not as much
Mhm.
outside influence, right? Like we
Right.
joked that like we had 30-minute videos, and I got to pick what they watched. And, Barney wasn't a bad guy back then. He didn't do weird things. And Sesame Street really was just about learning letters. But I controlled, what went into my children because there was no cable TV, there was no real internet, there was no technology that saturated what every family is being inundated with right now.
Yeah.
So it was simpler. Like I'm going to admit to that.
I also-
However, I had to use the tools with which I had were, typically my voice. So to your point, we didn't have videos in our car. My kids didn't have, whatever those things are.
Tablets and
Nothing like that. We would talk about what we would see out the window. I didn't play the radio. I mean, I know that's weird. I didn't listen to music like I listened to my kids. I would, hear them say, "Mommy, was that a Oh, I think it was a helicopter." I mean, what do helicopters do? I think helicopters. I mean, I would just make up scenarios. That's why my sister's like, "You just make up a narrative."
My son yesterday, I always have worship music on. That's what my boys are accustomed to. It's what we listen to. Well, I had Lainey Wilson's new album on, and a song came on, and the guy, a rapper comes in and he says something like, "I hope you," and he starts saying mean things like, "I hope you fall on your way." Like, it's silly. Dale goes, "What did he say, Mama?" And I'm like, "I didn't really hear." He said, "That wasn't nice." And it like just hit me in my heart because I just was like, what a sweet boy that he has more like, he's like, "What is this song? Where's my
Right,
Jesus?
Where's my
Yeah.
bring Jesus
But
back?
I'm in the parent coaching realm, and I see the side of survival of
Yes.
parents.
Yep, that's exactly it.
And lack of community and
Yep.
doing it all by themselves
Yep.
and sleepless. We were talking about having anger when your kids aren't sleeping and you just feel exhausted and they're just giving up.
Yeah.
It's easier to give an iPad to your kid because you have nothing left to give.
Yeah.
And this is why I was saying, like, it's not the same solution for everyone.
Yes, because there
Yeah.
are some
That's
that
what
are
I'm saying,
just
because there are some parents. That's what I'm saying. They literally just don't care.
Yeah.
And
Right.
I know it. I've seen it.
Yeah.
I've
Yep.
seen that. I don't care. I got a nail appointment.
Yeah.
I got a this thing. I
Yeah.
got blah blah. Like, I've seen that.
Yeah.
Okay, for those people, making it cost something might be effective because now the problem is your problem in a
Mhm.
way that makes sense for you. But that's not the same solution for this other parent over here, which is what I was trying to get to,
Yeah.
but it kept getting
Yeah.
cut off.
Yeah.
So, but this is a space of like, I have a lot of empathy for parents who are literally, because this is me, right? I am in the space of, I'm trying to break generational stuff, right? From the way that I was raised. My husband's doing the same thing. We are parenting largely by ourselves because my family is in New Jersey and they come down whenever they come down. His family is older and they have, the priorities that they have or whatever. So the community that we have is limited, right? And so we're parenting in a space of like, oh my God, we're trying to make sure that we do everything right, right? Because there is that panic of like, is this going to be the thing that sets them off and they're going to have trauma for their whole life? No, it's this thing over here. No, it's this. And like the boogeyman is around every corner. It's exhausting. Now, my husband and I happen to be, and I have to acknowledge this because sometimes when you are a high capacity individual, this is the same issue that I feel like is in teaching. When you yourself are a high capacity individual, it's hard for you to put yourself in the mindset of someone who is not.
Yeah.
And so then it becomes a judgmental thing. It becomes a like, oh, this person. But for me, I don't know why, because I've always been high capacity, but my heart in schools has always been for the kids who were not. Always. Like, I just had a soft spot for the kids who were like genuinely just looked like they were drowning in all the areas. That's what I gravitated towards. And it's the same thing with adults. There are some people, like, I look at parents who just seem to like have it all together. Their kids are great. They're like blah, blah, blah. They love parenting. They're like, being a mom is the best thing that ever happened to me. And I'm like, I envy that because being a mom is the hardest thing that ever happened to me. I love my kids, but goodness gracious,
It's
this
hard to be
is
consistent and
difficult.
to raise children. You have
Yes.
to be consistent.
Yeah. And so like and with that, I am still making the choice to educate them in the way that I am. My husband is also, but it's costing us a whole lot
Yeah.
to do it.
Yeah.
But we are both high capacity individuals, despite being in survival mode, because we both are, right? But I personally do have empathy for people who are struggling and all the capacity
Yes.
don't have it. And this is why I came back to the whole of like Jesus, right? Because in him, even through all of my weaknesses and all my stuff, if I'm walking with God, I can prioritize my life better.
Yeah.
I can prioritize what actually is important. As important as it is that I think it is, that I have to work 7 days a week, 24/7, because the most important thing that the world is telling me is that my kid has their own bedroom and doesn't have to share with their sibling and has the right shoes and da-da-da.
As in
If
14
I'm with
activities and
Christ,
sports and yeah.
exactly. If I'm with Christ, no, he gets to decide what my kid needs most. My kid needs my presence most.
Yeah.
And so they're going to have to share a room, and we're going to have to live in a home that's within our means so that I can be more present. Then I'm going to choose the hard thing to do.
Yeah.
And I don't think you get that without having this revelation of Christ.
Yeah.
And that's why I had such a hard time in the education school system, because there are 12,000 different solutions.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, you can't really properly prioritize things
So
if you're not listening to the Holy Spirit.
I'm glad you made that turn, because I was getting ready to step on my pastor soapbox for just a minute. Now I don't have to, but that's where I was going when Katie some minutes ago used the word morals, right? And that's why I asked you the question. So wait, are you saying that in each one of these situations that wouldn't help? Because then the turn I was going to make was we only find good morals through Jesus Christ, right? And I do believe this isn't just that's Christianese. Jesus is the answer, right? It doesn't. Okay, unpopular opinion from the least educated educator in that sense. It doesn't matter if the education system is broken. If there are enough parents who believe in and find Jesus, they will then prioritize their children, and they will produce good students even in a broken education system. Those students will then grow up and maybe influence and change the broken education system. I do think it comes back down to the morals, but the morals got to be found in Christ.
Oh, for sure.
And they have to be instilled in your children, because
Yes.
if you're, here's my one, I know we're run out of time, but my closing message to parents from a parent coach is, your job is so important. It really is. That pressure on yourself you feel, there's a reason for it, because we are raising humans. We're raising them to be disciples, to share the love of Jesus. Teachers surely can't, but guess what? If your child is in public school, because you can homeschool, they sure can. So if you can instill, firm beliefs in your children and morals, they can be the disciple walking through the public schools. So I think we often lower the importance of that. Like, my children will pray for you if you go ask them, because I've taught them that, right? They see it in me. It's whatever they see in you, just the way we try to emulate, Jesus, his walk here on, on earth. So,
And at the end of the day, we're all just trying to raise kids that don't end up with face tattoos.
I mean,
That's,
unless it's
There are
like,
worse
I love
things than face
Jesus.
tattoos.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking of everything else that's around face tattoos. That was the lightest thing I could say. Theo, would you like me to get more specific? Theo?
No, I just had to say that there's one guy popped in my brain that I know. Face full of tattoos from a previous life. Loves the Lord.
Yeah.
So doubt he's even watching, but
Yeah.
worse things than face
If
tattoos.
he is,
There are worse.
if he is,
There are worse.
we love you.
But did he
Yes.
get the face tattoos after finding Jesus or before?
I don't know if he added to them, is what I'm saying.
Okay.
Does that make sense? His first ones, I'm sure,
Probably
were before.
Yeah. I'm
Yeah.
trying
You
to
might
avoid
have.
the before.
Look, I'm breaking this
Okay.
down for
I
that
want
person
my
who's
children-
watching with
I
face
want
tattoos.
my children to have the blandest testimony in the world, and I want their testimony to be, my mom made me go to church all the time, and I know the Lord. That's what I want. I don't want them to have to walk through all the mess that I walk through. Now,
Yeah.
if God puts them through that, if they choose that, I will be with them and everything, but I want to expose them to as much goodness as possible so that they can be free to be children. I want them to be children, to like, just, what is that like? I don't even know. Sometimes I just watch them and I'm like, that's nice. That's so sweet. Like, I wonder what that's like. You know what I mean? And so, like, I love that. I love that my kids, and it is hard. Everything I just said, it is so hard. And like, there's moments where I really want to just tear my hair out and like everything. But it's really cool to have those moments where you see the effort
Yes.
come
Yeah.
through.
Yes.
Right. And
That's
you
what makes
see-
it so hard too, because you work so hard these first few years and you don't see a whole lot.
You don't see a lot. That's it.
You're in
is.
public and your kid's doing stuff. You're like,
You're like, this not. I
I
didn't do
don't-
this.
yeah, I don't know
didn't
what's
do this.
happening
This
right
is
now.
not like, like my 2-year-old Isla. She's a little feisty.
Well, and
Right?
I need to encourage you parents, because it's, when I reflect back, I think that so much of my parenting skills, I became a parent at 16. So I don't know anything but being a parent, right? And I know that I made mistakes with all 4 of my children. And so will you.
Mm.
You're going to miss something.
I
Somebody's
mess up every
going to
day.
correct.
As a parent coach, that's the first thing I say to people.
Mhm.
I want you to know that I mess up every day. So
Yeah.
anything I tell you, I don't
Right.
always do.
Because and we still do.
Yes.
Like the reality is, like back to your point, like God uses all the deficits in our parenting and our flawed parenting to point them to the perfect Heavenly Father. And that's a hard place to come to as a parent, because whether we're going to sit here and admit it or not, we still put ourselves on a pedestal in the lives of our children, because we are the earthly model of what they're supposed to emulate. But the reality is, we're going to fail them, and we're going to be flawed, just like our educational system is. So despite even our best efforts of whether it's homeschooling, whether it's tutorial, whether it's public school, whatever the choice is, it's a broken world. They're going to be impacted. And the goal is, back to your point, to raise them so that they are confident in who He is, not who you are. Because when you try to reflect, that you're holding it all together for your kid, that kids are so like transparent. They look right at you and they're like, what? I see something different. And now, to have adult children and, grandchildren, like the whole full circle moment. But again, the blessing of my life was that there wasn't these outside. I mean, okay, we had outside noise. I'm not trying to say that it was. I didn't live like in an Amish
I was going to say, I
community.
mean, I didn't grow up. Your son's my age. I'm not that old.
Right.
We had
But-
technology.
But now Lauren is 42.
yeah.
So, but they didn't grow up. We didn't have like,
Not when I was young, no.
Yeah, they
we
didn't
had,
have
we had
the same
VHS tapes.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
We didn't have the same, temptations of technology that parents deal with now. Even just the parental controls and the things that are being, I mean, it is a very different.
Takes a lot of discernment.
It's a very
to parent.
tons.
Yeah.
But the reality is that I think that after having Lauren and realizing how hard I was on myself and trying to not slip up and trip up, she saw that pressure that I was putting on myself. That didn't come full circle for me until she was a teenager. But what it did for me was made me change my parenting tremendously, because I realized that I was putting too much emphasis on what I was doing right or wrong, and not relying enough on my Heavenly Father to say. And again, that's not hands in the air, wave them like you just don't care, take them to Jesus. Like that wasn't but what I'm saying is, I also think that there's a place for kids being in a public setting. Now I'm going to flip all the way back to learn how to defend their faith.
Yeah.
And sometimes when there's a balance, because when we isolate and bubble and keep our kids wrapped up in bubble wrap until they're 18, then they're like, what in the world?
Yeah.
Where's my mama? We don't want to create such stifling codependency in our children that they don't even know how to answer a question without looking at us.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, it sounds like, Theo, you lived that life, and I mean, you seem like.
Yeah. Well,
Yeah.
Well,
You haven't
few
seen.
reasons.
Well, yeah, I mean, I'm pretty new to the
I'm just kidding,
team,
I'm
so
just
I haven't gotten deep, but
He looks
No, it's
he
a-
looks at Max a lot before he answers.
he's like, how deep should I go?
No, it's a few different reasons. One was because both my parents knew what they didn't want to do, right? They didn't have a whole lot of parenting help or guides. They both grew up in pretty broken households. They just knew what they didn't want. Same thing with the school system. They just knew what they didn't want
Yeah.
for their family, right? But one of the things that they didn't want is a bunch of little weirdo recluse children. So they socialize us.
Yes,
you
yes.
know?
Yeah.
I know when people are like, how are you going to socialize? I'm like, there's
Just
plenty of
many
socializing
things.
Gosh,
happening.
so
Don't
many
worry. Yeah.
opportunities.
In
Yeah.
fact, my kids are socialized out. I'm socialized out. So
Right. This is the thing. I want to come back to something you said, because I think it is important too. Is like about the whole bubble thing, because I think that there are a lot of misconceptions around homeschooling that the only reason people are doing it is to keep them in
Yes.
a bubble.
Right.
And I think like what you were saying, it's really important to expose, but I like having the ability to expose within control.
Yes.
Right. And so not to just be like, okay, when I send them to a school system, but we didn't even get into the other reasons why I don't want my kids
I know
in the
this could
public
have been
school
like 3
system.
hours. I had so
But
many other
I know.
touch points.
Right. But I want my girls to be at a place where if they hear something that is not right or does not sound right, they have heard enough of my voice
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
and God's voice
Yep.
that they can feel like they can fight.
Yes.
But we're not doing that right now. We
Yeah.
know that you come in for Sunday school, child what's it called on Sundays? I'm sorry.
Kids ministry.
Kids ministry.
Yes.
For kids ministry, and some of those kids, that's the only time they hear about Jesus.
Yep.
That little 20, 30 minutes that they're in that class, right?
Yep.
And I did not want that for my girls. I wanted them to overwhelmingly hear my voice, their dad's voice, God's voice. I want them to be so clear on that so that when they hear these other messaging, because we take them to all the stuff. My daughter does dance, she does soccer with other kids, other stuff, and she might hear stuff, and that's okay. But she's gonna know, like, let me run this by my mom, as opposed to like take on. For me, I was in school. My mom was my mom was also 16 when she had me, and she was in her own world, like. I did all of schooling by myself. She never came to any parent-teacher nights, no games, no nothing. She had no idea what was going on except for what I told her. And I got good grades, so she didn't care. You were doing what you were, what we're doing. And I found myself in that space very, like, I molded to whatever was around me.
Yeah.
That's it. So when I was in, public school in Jersey, I was this type of kid because that's what fit in there. And then at 11 years old, I get moved to Brooklyn, New York City. Shout out to Bushwick. But it was the hood, the proper hood. Like, and you're taking a kid who's been in this sort of vanilla environment into the hood. And I quickly, like, I'm talking about 2 months in, was like, oh,
You adapt
I'm
to
not going to survive.
Yeah.
If I am this vanilla thing. Okay. Oh, we wear big hoop earrings. I wear big hoop earrings. Oh, we say these words. I say these. Oh, we roll up our skirt to this length. I guess I'm rolling up my skirt to this length. Literally, and no one else to combat me because no one was around.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. And then I just unroll the skirt as I walk home, and and then my mom thinks everything is good.
The goal, whether it is public school, private school, tutorial, homeschool, the goal is that there is just about nothing your child hears outside that you haven't talked about before,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Now, they will hear different viewpoints of
Yes.
it,
Yep.
and that was the biggest reason why my parents chose homeschooling.
Yeah.
It's not that they didn't teach us about sex. In fact, I wager that they taught us about sex earlier than most people did,
Mhm.
but it was for that
They
purpose.
should.
Yep.
Because when you go out there and so-and-so, your friend, your whatever, you go sleep over somebody's house, and which we didn't do that really. They didn't let us sleep over anybody's house till we were a certain age. But you're in these spaces where you hear conversations. You need to have heard us speak on it
Yes.
first,
Yeah.
right? Now, again, there might, what does that word mean? Or, I didn't know that detail
Yep.
of it. But like, it's nothing I haven't heard before as far as I know about sex. I know about homosexuality. I know about, we're going to talk about these things, but you're going to get a biblical worldview of it, but you're nonetheless going to get a worldview. I oftentimes tell people when they ask me about my homeschooling experience and socialization and, all that kind of stuff, I tell them, first of all, I've said on this podcast before, my dad lived a wild life before he got saved. And so oftentimes tell people my parents did, and I don't even know, I know how they did it. It was Holy Spirit, but practically speaking, I don't know how they did it with no like help, no classes, they didn't have, aunties and uncles who were like guiding them. But I tell people they struck a really good balance of educating us about the world while still not exposing us, right? And what I mean by expose, people will, in a bad connotation, use the word shelter. Like, oh, you were sheltered. Shelter is a good thing,
Yes.
Yeah.
right? Like to be sheltered from the rain, from the hot sun, from the
Yes.
snow, shelter is a good thing. Now, to shelter in the viewpoint of we're all going to hunker down, close the blinds, we don't even know what outside looks like,
Right.
that's the problem when you get to
Right. Yes.
homeschooling. But you get the same thing in public school, private school, and all this. Your kids don't know what reality is because they're in the bubble. Only difference is now in this bubble, you've got the world speaking into it,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
They don't get what real life looks like. You go to school and you start a fight, you do this, you do that, and teachers aren't allowed to discipline you. And now they're passing laws where you can't really be tried. Like nothing really happens. So they're in this bubble that is being informed in a certain way. Then they get out into the world, act a fool, and you go to jail.
Right.
You get shot
It's not
by a
even-
police officer,
exactly.
right? Like all because parents aren't
Pouring into
sheltering
their
and
children.
pouring into, yeah. And so man, just kind of doubling down on what you were just saying. The whole idea is that I want my kids to hear my voice,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
right? I want them to hear my voice, and not obviously not just my voice, but the voice of God.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will also say that some of the problems we have, we didn't even scratch the surface on this, but also some of it's just the design of our country and like the way that we do things in general,
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
we have made it so that both parents have to work for the most
Yep.
part. And then if you are working, you have to work crazy hours to make a living. We've made it that way. The cost of living is so high in most areas, not
Mhm.
everywhere. I know some lucky states are still chilling with whatever they're doing.
Shout out Delaware, no sales tax. Let's go.
But for the most part, it does make it difficult, right, to do all of the things. And so I don't want anybody to hear this episode and then just be like, oh, we're shaming all parents all time.
Sure.
Like, that's not the case. But yeah, in some areas, parents do have to do more. I'm not trying to make a perfect life for my kid. I don't want like anybody to hear that either. I know I will mess up, and let her see me, both of them, let them see me mess up and how I process through that. I think that's really important. They see if my husband and I are going to argue, they'll see that, and then they see us come back. Like this morning,
That's essential.
With
That's
my,
closing the trauma loop.
This morning my husband and I were not actually arguing. It was like we were teasing each other, and she read it as we were fighting, but we were literally joking.
My son is
And so she came out, she's like, mom, dad, like, don't fight. And I'm like, baby, we're not fighting. Like, you see the smile when daddy's
Yeah.
smiling and mommy is smiling, like, we're teasing each other.
Yes.
And she's like, oh, like, because she's coming from another
Yeah.
room.
Yeah.
She's just like, whatever. And so, we just explain those things to her. But what I don't want to happen is this other side of like, I don't want to be so lax in that, oh, well, God is going to take care of everything. And so I don't have to fix anything. Like,
Right.
but I don't want that. I think there has to be, like what you guys were saying, like there has to be this balance of
Mhm.
there is some effort and work that I have to put forth as a
Yeah.
parent.
Oh, yeah.
And then there's going to be stuff that for sure we're going to make mistakes. But my goal is to be at least a level more aware
Yeah.
than my mother was. And my mom's goal was to be more aware than her mom
Yeah.
was.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so on and so
And
forth.
I think like the biggest thing, it ties to education, parenting, all of it too. And people are going to come after me, but screens in general are detrimental to children.
Mhm.
We're buying cell phones for elementary school students that cannot process what they're seeing. Pornography, the typical age children are seeing that is 8. Most
Yep.
parents aren't talking to their kids about it
Yeah.
before the age of 8.
Yeah.
Then they're confused, they're traumatized, they don't even know what that is.
Yeah.
Where I see kids in public at the grocery store on a phone. Again, I've had days where it was a really hard day with babies, and it might be a one-off, but as a consistent thing, it can't happen because your daughter learns how to read facial expressions when you do things like that, right? Think about in public, they learn, how do we interact with a cashier? By watching us.
Yeah.
So if your child is consumed watching a phone, they are never going to learn how to socialize. How do you handle this situation? Oh, that person bumped into my mom and she didn't cuss them out. Like, how does she handle it, you know?
Yeah.
And kids aren't seeing that.
No,
They're
none
seeing
of it.
this.
But this is too, but also like think about the society we're in. Because yes, and right,
yeah.
yes, and because so my husband and I, we made a decision to not do screens and stuff for restaurants, anything like that. Like we're gonna and it
Yeah.
sucks because it would be easier to just pull off
Yeah.
the screen.
Oh, yeah.
And in fact, when we go out to restaurants, most kids
Yep.
have the screen, but not our
Doctor's
kids.
office,
right?
in the waiting rooms,
Everything,
everywhere.
And so that is the easier path to do.
Mhm.
But why? Because most spaces are not created for children.
Yeah.
So you go into a restaurant and you scream. Most people are annoyed that there's kids there. There's videos of the airplane, like somebody literally, losing their mind because a baby is crying on the airplane, right? There's such a low tolerance for children in our society, in our culture. I mean, this is why we have, so many people pro-choice. And I don't even say, this is my second week talking about it because it gets me so
The
upset
influencers.
because I saw his response.
Oh, yeah.
This thing is
Somebody
crazy
told
to
me about
me.
it, yeah.
Did
Yeah.
you see
Mhm.
that he responded?
I think
about
I
the
told you
dolls?
about it the other day when
Oh
we were
my
chatting.
God, guys, this story is just getting under
Mhm.
my skin so much. But like we have such a low value of children in our
Mhm.
society, and so there is no space for them in places, right? Like if you go to other countries, they have spaces where children are welcome. Like they actually put you first, like with the kids, because they understand how important that is to society. We do none of that here. We don't even have maternity leave in most places properly
Yeah.
for folks. We don't.
Well,
We
and
don't have the support system.
I'm gonna rebut you because I'm gonna say back when my mom was raising us, restaurants weren't friendly, like kid friendly. They didn't have spaces for kids to hang out. My mom equipped herself with something to bring with her to entertain us. I took 4 of my kids to the doctor's office, to the grocery store, everything.
Yeah, but that's you and your mom. That's what I'm saying. But that's not the case
But it's
all
but
the way
it,
around.
no, you're exactly right.
Yeah.
But my point is
I
that
just don't take my boys
that
to restaurants.
that I
That's what
I-
most people do. Most parents right now are staying
which
home.
is sad because then
well,
your kids
it's
aren't.
honestly it's
Yeah.
because it costs $180
money,
to go
right.
out to
That's the
dinner.
other
And
thing.
same
so,
thing. Like
yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
Lauren used to say, "Why do you only go out to dinner when
Yeah, we do
when
go
I'm not
out,
here?"
but-
Because you get a full adult meal. Your
Mhm.
baby brothers could take bites off my plate, and it was cheaper. Like all the, but I would go to the doctor's office with a Ziploc bag. I didn't have I didn't have a fancy diaper bag. A Ziploc bag of a piece of chalk and crayons, and we would play hangman on the white piece of paper in the doctor's office. Like,
Yeah.
but my mother taught me that creativity of like
Yeah.
how to occupy a child's time so that we did it
And
at
it's
the
exhausting. Like it's
restaurants
like Max
used
said,
to
it's
provide
exhausting.
those little you're right.
It's
Mhm.
yeah.
And the season is like nanosecond.
Yes.
Like it's easy for me
Yeah.
to say that now, but restaurants used to make the
Placemats that you
thank
could
you.
color.
I don't
yeah.
have words. Where you could flip it over and you could play with your kid, tic-tac-toe, or and I would just bring stuff. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean that's what we did, but it was when we could afford to because I
Yeah.
was a stay-at-home mom. Like I
Yeah.
did quit my job, but back then too, churches had things like MOPS, which was Mothers of Preschoolers, where you would come together in community. I wasn't in a big church. My church wasn't very large at all. There weren't a lot of stay-at-home moms, but there was a MOPS group at something church down the street where somebody sought me out and said, "Hey, I'm going to a MOPS meeting." Sure,
Yeah.
I don't even know what that is, but I thought we were going to be cleaning stuff with mops. I had
When
no
you said
idea.
churches had mops, I was like, what were y'all doing with mops?
Well, and I
Yeah.
think the enemy's main goal is separation
Yeah.
and motherhood, especially early
So lonely.
motherhood.
Oh, and
is
isolation.
so lonely and isolating, especially, and that's why my business is the village, because I wanted to create a village for moms because I was so isolated. My family's also in Pennsylvania, and just your mom's different from I love my
Correct.
mother-in-law, but it's just
I'm not
different
your
not
mom,
having your
right.
mom. And I think the separation. So what fills that void? Our phones. If you walk in a doctor's office, not just the kid on a phone to keep them busy, parents on a phone too.
Yep.
Yeah.
Because
Yep.
we want to shut our brain down. We
Yeah.
want to, and the enemy wants to separate us from the
Yeah.
world, from reality, from where we are. And it's in school. The reason I said screens for schools too, because it's in schools too.
Yeah.
It's
Oh,
easier
yeah.
for a teacher to say, go play on this such and such app
Yeah.
for 30 minutes than it is for them to entertain. It's
Mhm.
exhausting and it's hard.
Uh,
The only reason I have the strength is pointing back to Jesus.
Yeah.
Yep.
There are
That's it.
days I'm like, how am I going to do this?
And we're
And
not
somehow I
addressing
do.
also the fact that 20 years ago, whenever it was, like we're not addressing like literally that our brain chemistry has changed
Yes.
because of screens, like
Yeah.
Yes.
everybody. So
Dopamine,
at
yep.
any age, like us right here, none of us here have our same brain that we had like in 20 years ago
Yep.
in lots of ways, but specifically also in this way
Because
of
of
like
screens.
all of our attention spans are worse right
Oh,
now.
yeah.
All of our stuff is and again the level of stress that we have
Mhm.
Yeah.
is heightened because of all of the what's it called things that are getting plugged into our mind all the
Input,
time
yeah.
yeah all the input that we're getting and receiving at all times, so things that maybe didn't bother our grandmother
Yeah.
feel like a huge issue to us right now as like a parent, right, trying to figure out. And then again for our children, they're growing up in this space too. It's really difficult to keep your kids away from all screens at all times.
Yeah, and
in
I'm not
all
saying
places.
TV. I use TV in my house. I'm not saying that.
No, I
I'm
know
more
that.
so saying in
Yeah.
public settings and
But
when
we-
it's hard.
Yeah, it's difficult, but this is the thing, like you make your choices as to when. So for us, we're not perfect. So if we're gonna go on our car ride, that's a long car ride, an hour, they're gonna be able to watch whatever their show is that they've been dying to watch all week or whatever. But when we get to the restaurant, there is no show. When we are in biking outside, they're not on their phone as we're biking, they're looking at their surroundings. So there's
Yeah.
a balance to have whatever. Now the point though is that I know that still whatever level of screen time is changing my kid's brain, but it's changing the same way that literally everyone else's brain
Yes.
is changing also,
Yes.
right? And so like I can cry
can't
all I
obsess over it,
want
yeah.
about how I want the times to be
Yeah.
what they were. they're just not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the same thing with people fighting AI right now. We're never going back.
Yeah.
We're never going back to no AI.
Right.
So I could sit here and fight about how good it was and da da da. And like, great, we're just not going backwards. So I either have to learn to adapt to this world that's here and figure out how my best to use this while
Setting
you had mentioned
boundaries.
about like your parents only knew what they didn't want to see, right?
Yeah.
And this is something like that I just had this conversation with them because it was something that like God really like revealed to me, that I was so focused on only what I didn't want to see that I wasn't putting enough into what I did want to see. And so parenting from a place of only what you don't want to see does get chaotic.
That's
it
so
gets
funny. I
very,
almost
like,
said it to you, but I didn't, because I was like, that's more parenting. But I almost
No,
said that to you,
it's
that
true.
when we focus on what we don't want to do, we often do it.
Yep.
Because it's what's taking up
Yep,
space in our
that's
mind
exactly
and in
it.
our body and our nervous system. And then we end up doing it. And then we're like, why do I,
Yep.
what does Paul say? Why do I do what I don't want to do? And I do what
Yep.
I don't want to do.
And
right?
that's what it is. That's why when I
Yeah.
talk to people too, it's like the best thing you could do is to try to create a vision for what you want to
Yep.
see.
Yep.
What kind of kids do you want to raise? What kind of blah, blah, blah. And then figure out steps to walk in towards that direction. There are things that, you know, I know that I want Nola to, my oldest, both of them, I want both of them to be this way, but Nola's 4 already. But I want her to be confident. Okay. What I don't want is for her to be scared all the time. But if I'm constantly focused on the not being scared,
Yep.
blah, 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 so no, okay, how do we make sure that you're a confident? And she is. She's a confident little girl, right?
Yeah.
She knows who she is already, even at 4 years old. And I'm like, okay, great. Now I have to pay for that on the other side, because when she don't want to do something, she very confidently says, no, I don't. And I'm like,
Yes.
no, well, you got to do it. Right. So I'm teaching her now about the difference between, you know, safety and listening versus like, I don't want to do something or I
Yeah.
do want to do. It's not
Yeah.
always what I do and don't want to do.
No, I'm
you
glad you
know?
guys clarified that, but let me clarify what I meant. I didn't mean what you were saying. What I meant was they knew very clearly what they didn't want, and that's what they didn't do.
Yes.
Right?
No, I
They
get that.
very clearly, you know, this is what we want for you. In fact, one of my favorite gifts, well, multiple years, but some of my favorite gifts from my mother over Christmas time were her letters. This is what I want for you. This is what I've been
Oh, I
praying
love
over
that.
you, things like
Yeah.
that. So I need to clarify that, because if mom watches every episode,
gonna be like,
she's going to be like, hey,
and
don't
mom,
be
you know I
misrepresenting.
love you. So I wasn't saying that about
Oh,
you.
yeah.
But no, yeah, no, I'm
Yeah.
glad you guys pointed that out, because someone could have probably taken
Well, no,
that
because
the wrong way.
I just had this conversation recently with someone too who was in the same kind of vibe that I'm in, because we don't want to repeat these things.
Yeah.
And so I found myself in the beginning just like, okay, I'm just,
Obsessing.
yeah. And I've said this on the podcast before too. I say this all the time, but like the devil works in extremes.
Yeah.
So if you find yourself in an extreme in any area of parenting, of whatever school, like you need to stop and be like, okay, is this actually God or is this the devil? Like
Yeah.
literally influencing me in this space.
Yeah, something that I want to get to, whether we're talking about the educational system, whether we're talking about parenting, specifically when it comes to like public school, private school, all those kind of things. And what we've just got done talking about for the last 10, 20 minutes is how difficult it is, right? Because there's different life situations, different parenting situations, all that. I'm going to say something that's going to be really heavy. But the question is, as we're talking about screens and things like that, what are you sacrificing, right? And that's what we've all been saying. What are you sacrificing with the screens? What are you sacrificing? Because if I'm unwilling to be involved with my child's education, whether homeschool, public school, whatever, screens, if I'm unwilling to be involved with my child, my mind goes back to, as we were all talking, the detestable God of the Old Testament, Moloch. And what Moloch offered was convenience and what's the word, growth for you, or success for
personal
you.
freedom for yourself.
Yeah, if you sacrifice your child, right? And so
That's heavy.
I know that in America we could talk about pro-life, pro-choice all day when it comes to sacrificing children. But sadly, we get so many children that are born and still sacrificed because parents aren't willing to sacrifice and be involved for them, right? So instead of sacrificing your desire for your own free time or your desire for the lack of chaos, instead of sacrificing that, you sacrifice your child by sticking a screen in their face. You sacrifice your child by, I get it, you maybe you can't be at every parent-teacher conference, but you can still parent your child to produce a student that loves the Lord and shows up to school ready to learn, and is not back talking the teacher and starting fights and all this stuff. And so the question comes down to, in my brain, is what are you willing to sacrifice? What are you willing to give up? And far too many parents, even Christian parents, are still sacrificing their children to the God of Moloch, the God of being
That's
comfortable.
heavy.
Yeah. It's good.
So as we kind of wrap this up, I just want to know if there's any, I'm sure y'all have read a lot of books. But if there's any specific books that you guys would have as it pertains to education and or parenting, I'd love to hear from all three of you. I've said pretty much what I want to say, and I told you guys from the beginning, I don't have a ton. I got a ton of opinions, but I don't have a ton of resources for you when it comes to education itself. So let me start with Beth.
So I was a fond reader of Dr. Dobson's The New Dare to Discipline, which was a phenomenal book that gave me great ideas on positive reinforcement and things that worked. I had a great devotion when the kids were younger called What Would You Do If? And it really was a scenario kid devotion that like walked your kids through certain scenarios. So it really was meant for older kids. So for Lauren in high school, it was, what would you do if you walked into the high school cafeteria and a, special needs child was sitting by him or herself and all the kids were shunning that, and the goal was honesty from your child, not that she would give me the church answer. And then I just made up scenarios for the youngers, that kind of match that. Just communicating. I think that the blessing of being a 16-year-old parent was that I had a living, breathing reality of how quickly that time went, which completely changed my perspective and made me more present with my kids. And that changed everything for me because I very quickly saw those moments that those sleep deprivation, potty training, all the things that wear you out, like legit wear you out. I'm looking at her thinking, wow, like that, it's gone, like she's gone. So that when the boys were born, my perspective was very, very, very different.
I have a couple. One of my favorite parenting books is Godly Discipline. So that one's really good if you're struggling with discipline aspects and getting your kid to listen to you.
Do you
Super
remember
good
who
one.
that's by?
I do not, and I don't have my phone on me. But if you look it up,
good. We'll have it in the show
I
notes.
will say
something.
I can send it. And we'll put it in the show notes. And then how to raise emotionally smart kids. That's the only emotional book that I have found that doesn't relay too much on feelings. It really relays on consistency. It gives really amazing strategies that I use with my kids of how to handle conflicts, how to handle things like if you find yourself always saying don't do that and threatening, it gives you kind of solutions of things you can put in place of that have really helped me. As far as education books, I have not found many that I that I love because sadly a lot of them are based on kind of how our system is today. But if you are homeschooling or public school, look up The Science of Reading and The Science of Mathematics. It's a phenomenal curriculum, and they have free videos to show you how to teach your kids phonics and just kind of get back to the basics of teaching your kids to read and be a part of their education. This summer doesn't mean it's nothing all summer, right? Do that recursive practice. Do the things they should have learned last year so that when they go this year, they're prepared, right? I think sometimes parents are just like, it's summertime, nothing needs to happen, when really that's the time you can take ownership in your kids' education. Do it on weekends, on Saturday mornings, whatever it is. Practice multiplication facts in the car. Whatever you can do. So, but yeah, those are two good ones that
Maxine,
like.
aside from gutting the education system completely,
I didn't do it. I didn't even move forward. I was
no,
trying
I'm
to
just gonna say,
explain a piece of where I
aside
was
from
in
that-
my
No, I had a
What is
place
your
of that.
advice?
I had a place of that.
aside from that, what would your advice be?
Honestly, I think I mentioned everything that I wanted. We need to be responsive and we need to adapt to the world that we're in right now. And so I think that we need to be present in our kids' lives and show up with whatever schooling system that you choose to actually put effort into it, right? And that it is more important. There's certain decisions in our life that are more important than others, right? Who you marry is important. Who you choose to have children with is important. Where your kids are going to be and how they're going to be educated is important. So let's do our due diligence with those things, right? You would never just go buy a random house without checking everything else in it, right? We need to have that level of scrutiny for all of these other decisions too. And so just being mindful that it does matter. We can't assume that every school is going to be a good school, that every teacher is a good teacher. Do your homework, be involved when you can. And if you don't have time, then you have to somehow find some time because
Mhm.
it's that important.
Show me your screen time on your phone
Yeah,
before you can say you don't have time.
yeah, it's
Mhm.
that important. And so,
Preach.
and then I also just want to talk about just really quickly, just grace in parenting, because there
Mhm.
is room for that. But I also I hate when people use the word grace and only have like the partial definition or the partial spacing of it, which is like the grace that we understand of like, oh, well, it covers everything. So like make as many mistakes as you want because grace covers it all. And then like, no, grace is a power. And grace is a power that when you have messed up, that it can help you to move forward, to transform into space. So I want you to have grace and know that you are empowered to move, to change the places where you've made a mistake.
Yeah.
And if you're that parent and you're like, man, I feel really convicted by this episode, that it's very simple. Just make a new decision tomorrow. Like literally.
Yeah.
If you're someone who hasn't talked to your kid in a long time, stop and have a conversation. And then also just know that it might be difficult to do at first because your kid's not used to it. And that's okay.
Yeah.
So be empowered to do something about what you're seeing and not just complaining about all the stuff you don't like.
That's good. That's good. Well, as always, we love y'all. We want to hear from you. So I would love, and if you have any questions for any of these ladies, shoot us an email at betweensundays@newlife.live. We'd love to hear if we were barely scratching the surface.
We know we
would-
were. we could have went for another 8
Yeah.
hours.
Yeah.
Well, I
for
believe
sure.
it. I believe it. I'd love to hear any things that you learned that were new. Any ideas for other episodes. We will definitely be bringing you two back. And thank you again,
Yeah.
Beth, and thank you,
Awesome. That
Katie.
was
and
awesome.
Yeah.
Always, thank you, Maxine.
Yeah.
Look, y'all, stick around for season 3. It's gonna be lit. All right, we love y'all.
Living